Press record. Yay! Awesome. I am so excited, Adrien. I've been looking forward to this all week.
Really, have you?
I have. I love your energy so much. I've been watching your Making Miracles Happen series, and it's amazing. I'm loving your energy.
Thank
So,
you.
welcome Adrien Blackwell to my channel. Everyone say hello in the comments to Adrien. Adrien is a remarkable woman and entrepreneur who has helped many, many people, and she is currently running a series called Making Miracles Happen, and I was one of the speakers, and it was just so much fun to connect with you. And I was like, I want people to know about this series. I want to interview you.
And that's why I'm here.
Yeah, in the series, you're interviewing everyone else, and we get to learn a little bit about you along the way. But I'm sitting there thinking, I want to know her awakening story.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Yes. And I do have one.
I know you do. Of course you do. Yes.
Are you ready for it?
I'm ready. Lay it on me.
My awakening, I think, happened when I was born. I tell people all the time, I'm like, I wanted to be a fairy that sprinkled fairy dust on people and made them happy. And what does that sound like today? I can't fly. I don't have fairy dust. I can get some baking soda and pretend. But it's like the best that I have, right? So I'm like, what's the closest to that? What I was thinking as a child, as a healer. And that's what I spend my life doing. So I was like, that was my awakening. I already knew I was here for a reason. But I was raised a Jehovah's Witness. And so it kind of shuts you down a little bit. And I actually really got lucky because I still had like that inner knowing. And sometimes I would have like guides that would come and like speak to me in my mind and be like, don't believe what they're saying. Don't believe what they're saying. It's okay. That's not the truth.
Wow.
And so, you go through programming like anybody else because you have to survive. You have to look at your family and go, what do I have to believe? And how do I have to pretend like I, believe this to survive? And that's what I did. And you get to a point where sometimes you do believe some of the stuff that's happening. And even if you don't consciously believe it, it's subconsciously running in your mind. Because I honestly remember thinking about my parents. I'm like, adults really don't think this, do they? They really don't think that this religion stuff, like especially Jehovah's Witnesses, like you can't believe that. And then I was like, but what if it's real?
So did you talk to your parents about any of this?
No, because their belief system was so strict. Like I remember we had like this little bar attached to the kitchen. And I remember them sitting there talking to each other about homosexuality, because that's what it was called back then. It's like, oh, he's gay. So like, they're homosexuals. And how awful it is and how it's against religion. I don't remember why they were having the conversation, but I was like 5 sitting on the couch watching TV. And within the TV screen, there was like some kind of angelic figure. So it wasn't scary because it looked like it was on the TV. That they were telling me that's not, it's only love. We talk about love. Like, this is not against anything. This is not bad. It's love. This is what you want to focus on, is love. And so I remember that. Like, I remember something coming in telling me my parents were wrong. And so it almost made it okay to know that they were wrong, which is huge, because that's part of the issues that I work with people, is that, the inner child thinks the parent is always right. And I didn't think that my parents are right at all. Like, these people are so wrong. So
wow.
That was some of the experiences that I had. I remember just psychically, my very first experience psychically was that my sister wanted to go to her friend's house. And I got a really bad feeling, and I saw what was going to happen, and she was going to want to come home early. And to me, honestly, I felt like everybody is going to see what I see. Like, if me and you are seeing the color blue on the table, you're going to share this vision with me just as clearly, right? So I'm like, Daddy, don't let her go. Like, if something bad's going to happen. And he cocked his head and looked at me like, you're playing with me. Why are you playing with me? What? And I'm just like, I'm mad because like, you think I'm joking? Like, this is crazy. Like, why are you so stupid? You're not even going to listen to what you're seeing. Because in my mind, he's seeing it. He's seen it. So I'm just thinking adults are dumb. Like they're just stupid, you know? And he's just not going to listen to his own intuition. He's not going to listen to me. So he let her go. He said she could go. And it was 11 o'clock at night. And my sister called and was like, come pick me up. And she was crying. I don't remember what happened. I don't remember if she even told us, but I remember she was crying and she wanted to come home. And I was like, see. And it was like, it was not really acknowledged. Like, you did say that, but nothing else was acknowledged because they don't know what this is. They have no idea, you know? My dad, oh my God, I don't know if I ever really talked about this. My dad, like the way he told me that spirituality, spiritualist, anything spiritual other than religion is wrong. And what's funny to me is like, my dad wasn't even like religious. Like the only reason he was a Jehovah's Witness is because my mom was like, either you have to become a Jehovah's Witness and marry me or I'm leaving. I still to this day don't get why I don't understand. Anyways, so my dad told me that like some story about how his family played with the Ouija board and like it said that somebody was going to die. And then like the next day, the tree fell through the house and he thinks it has something to do with the spirit. So he don't play with the spirits anymore. So honestly, like it doesn't make any sense. Like when I listen to the story now, I'm like, what? Nobody died. Like, what? And nowadays I'm just kind of like, as a child, that must have terrified me. Like terrifying. How I got into this whole work, I don't know, because like everything that they said about it was scary.
You just came into it. So at a soul level, why do you think you chose those parents?
Because I had a rebellious spirit. I was like, please tell me something wrong so I can prove you wrong. Please come show me why I shouldn't do this. So I'll tell you why you should, you know, that's my energy. That is my spirit. Like, let me prove you wrong. I just want to prove you wrong. So, because there's something that happens to the mind, and I've noticed this throughout the years, but there's something that happens to the mind when you prove yourself wrong or somebody else proves you wrong that expands it. So you're not living within this box you think is your reality. Reality is much bigger than we could ever comprehend. But only when we can see that reality is bigger than what we can comprehend does our consciousness expand. So my consciousness was expanded by wanting to prove them wrong. Like, what else is out there? Is it real? Is it true? And I kept seeing it bigger, and so my consciousness just kept expanding. But I also feel like I was brought into this family because Jehovah's Witnesses, and I will say this, people will hear me say this during interviews because it was the most profound thing about Jehovah's Witnesses. They have this book, and it's called Reasoning with the Scriptures. And so they teach you how to reason. And I reasoned myself right out of the religion. But it was because I was taught how to reason. That was so fascinating to me. I was like, you guys taught me how to think for myself.
Interesting.
And what's interesting is the whole reason that they have this book called Reasonings with the Scriptures is so that you don't think for yourself when it comes to reading the Bible. Oh, you can't interpret it by yourself, so let us interpret it for you. You reason these things out and you look at our reasoning and why we're reasoning on it. And I was like, no, I learned how to reason. That was the whole thing.
To me, that is such the opposite of connecting with God, connecting with Source, whatever you want to call it. It's not a mind exercise. It's heart, it's soul. That's so fascinating to me. Even in the religion I grew up in, it was a very real connection with God that I had. It wasn't something of my mind. So that's so fascinating to me that your experience is it sounds very mental.
It's very mental. It's very mental because that's where our belief systems are stored. That's where they're held. That's what dictates what we're afraid of and why we don't move forward is the mind. And I'm going to tell you, I've been studying the mind since I was 12 years old. 12. And I'm fascinated by the mind. I'm fascinated how, elephants, I'm sure you heard the story of elephants, is that you tie them up as when they're babies. And if they can't get out of it for the rest of their life, they will never try. They will never try. Yeah. So the adult elephants, I remember that I think there was something like 20 adult elephants that had burned in a fire because they never tried to get out of they're tied down with a little bitty stake. All they have to do is move and that stake will no longer be on the ground. And they didn't even try because as babies, they were tied up and they realized I have this thing around my ankle, I can't get out of it. It was a belief system. So they never tried anymore. And I'm like, people are like that. People have that same similarity. And so really learning how to use the mind, how the mind works, realizing, the psychology of human beings was fascinating to me, because that's where the healing really begins, is freeing the mind so that you can experience the spirit.
What's one tip you could give to people to get, I'm trying to figure out the way I want to say it, to free our minds? What's a tip you could give us to free our minds?
I have so many tips. Is there just one? If I were going to choose one tip, or a dozen of them, let me just give them to you. No, like a tip to free the mind would be to look at your belief systems and why you have them. So here's one for you. This was a big deal for me. I lived in New Zealand for a year, and there was a guy that I had met who I realized later on had fell in love with me, and I was like rejecting love. I had been out of a relationship for about a year. I had a newborn baby. I was like, And so I remember us having, like, sitting down and having a conversation about this like a year after it happened, after I got back home, and she was giving me this advice. And then I thought about her marriages, and would I take advice from somebody who has never had a successful one? And I asked her about this. Like, I was just honest. And I was like, should I take advice for you when you've never had a successful relationship? And my mother thought about it. Like, she didn't take it as rude or anything like that. She actually sat and thought about it. And she said, actually, no, you shouldn't listen to me. And I was like, see, mind expanded. Why would I listen to somebody? Because so many of us, we just want to be liked. We just want to be accepted, because that is the human nature. We are pack animals. We're not loners. And so we're going to listen to people, whether they have a track record or not. We're going to listen to people, whether they're right or not, just to be accepted, just so that you'll like me. And my mother, just even having that dialogue and having that realization, having that communication, and her just kind of like agreeing with it, like, that makes sense. Like, we're reasoning right now, right? That helped me expand my thinking. So sometimes when we question why we think what we think, like, why do you have the spiritual beliefs that you have? Sometimes it's because we were raised in it. It's not because it's necessarily right for us.
Yeah.
It's simply because my parents are going to be mad at me if I leave this religion. My parents are going to be mad at me if I don't have this belief system. And so therefore I hold on to it.
It takes a lot of courage to examine your belief systems, because they're sort of what grounds us. I found it very fascinating in my own journey, growing up Mennonite, then having a spiritual awakening, and now being with the partner that I'm with now, and he questions a lot of things, and it's great. I love it, because I'm a very curious person. I want to expand and learn, but it's very interesting, because I've been in the spiritual realm for so long. Now going back and revisiting some of those belief systems that I've developed from my experiences, it takes a little bit of courage for me to kind of step outside of what I've come to believe and question everything again.
Does it get easier for you with time?
I think so. Yeah, it's like a muscle. I think it's like a muscle that you build. The willingness to be vulnerable, the vulnerability muscle, and then the willingness to question everything. Even though a lot of my belief systems are built on my experiences, not something someone told me, right? This is not something I've been indoctrinated with, or my personal experiences. It's still, it takes a lot of courage. But it does, to answer your question, I think it does get easier, because you build that muscle of not being afraid to start all over, not being afraid to empty your mind, not being afraid to take an honest look at things.
Yeah.
How about you? Has it gotten
it becomes a part of the norm. Yeah. I actually have a mantra that I say and I follow since 2004. Wow, that's been a long time. But it's follow my fears. Because the belief systems usually bring up the fears. Well, why am I afraid? Well, let me face it and find out. So it becomes, the thing that I do the most is like looking at my belief system. Why do I believe this way? Why am I looking at this way? And welcoming a partner, myself, that will question some of the ways that I think, so that I'm like, Yeah, maybe I need to look at that. Maybe I need to change that, or a lot of people, they run away from it.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear it. And so therefore they just keep these really unhealthy relationships because they believe that their beliefs are facts. And I always tell my clients, beliefs are not facts. They are not facts. They are beliefs.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a difference.
What's fascinating to me is how like the breadth of beliefs that we can have as humans. I mean, you look at what's happening in the world right now, and people who are anti-shot, people who are pro taking the shot, just like as a very obvious example, because that's so relevant right now.
Oh, yeah.
You look at that and it's like, how it boggles my mind how there can be such rigidity on either side, and each side thinks they're so right. And it's just so fascinating to me how humans work that way.
It is. And it's something that bothers me. And I think it should bother most people, and definitely people in the spiritual community, because I've noticed them taking sides too. And my take on it, because I'm an open vessel, I'm an open box, right? I can see the whole let's separate. They've been doing this for a long time. I'm a Black woman. I've seen how they've been doing this.
Yes.
For eons. This has been happening for thousands of years. Of course, let's separate, let's divide, right? And people just fall into the hands, just do it. Oh, this is, you're right, you're wrong, whatever it is, they want to divide. And for me, it's not about division. For me, it's about seeing the truth. And the truth is that people are going to make the decision they feel is best for them. And how dare I judge you for doing what you think is going to save your life?
Right.
How dare I? Because I want the freedom to pick what I think is going to save my life.
Right.
Whether it's right or wrong doesn't matter. It's just a choice. It's just a decision. It's an experience that I should have a right to make.
Yeah.
And so it's like, why is my life more important than yours? Where something could put you in danger, or something could kill you, something could do something, but my life is more important than yours. So I feel like I should force this on you. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. But that's what fear does. And this is why we have to look at our belief system, because your belief system is a fear. It doesn't make it a fact. It makes it a fear.
It's amazing to me that people don't see the divide and conquer agenda. And I don't want to get judgmental here, but it is like, I'm just like, how do you not see what's happening? That we're purposely being divided. So we can't come together and create a new world. Like, how do you not see?
It's really scary to think about. It's really scary to think about. Like, people think that bad things can't happen when they're privileged. And in the world that we live in right now, a lot of us are very privileged.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're like, we've never had to go through what our parents or our great grandparents or our great great grandparents went through. It doesn't exist to us. That this is something that is the norm in our society. Like, this is just the thing to do. They're always doing it. It's never stopping. It's continuation. But when you've never really had to look at it, when you've never had it done to you in such a blatant way, then people just don't see it. They don't perceive it. But if my great grandmother, and I was raised around her, and I was still alive and growing up with stories of how how this was happening to them, and how all these bad things were happening and people were being killed, and like the Holocaust and whatnot, it would be norm. It would be the norm to see it, because we would be brought up with the stories and the understanding of this is what happens. But when you're put in what we consider like a safe country, a safe place, right, you never think it's going to happen to you until it happens. So I think until it's blatant anyway, because again, it's always happening. So it's interesting to see how many people are like in their divide, no matter who they are.
Yeah.
No matter who they claim to be. Yeah, it's interesting.
What would you say is the way that we can heal this divide, and that with different belief systems we can come together and create a new earth?
My way of thinking is that you can't heal the divide. You can only heal the divide within yourself.
Yeah.
Because the divide is going to happen within. Like, I'm not judging either side, right? So I'm getting rid of the divide within myself. Like, you're doing the best you can with the knowledge that you have. And some people don't gain knowledge. They just go by whatever they hear, whatever they think, or their fear. You've made me afraid enough to believe you without doing the research. You've made me afraid enough to believe you without needing to think for myself because I'm so afraid. But what happens when you take away the fear and you actually educate yourself? What happens when you allow yourself just to partake in knowledge itself for the sake of knowledge? All of a sudden, your feelings change. What you do changes. The judgment goes away. You start to respect everybody in the space that they're in. Even if they're in the wrong, if that's what you want to consider it, you just respect that people are where they are. I can't expect a kindergartner to be in college. And so therefore, I can't always expect human beings to be further along than they are. So you just respect people where they are. You can't heal that. You can't heal a childlike mindset. You can't heal, somebody who doesn't want to heal. So you always have to clear the divide within yourself. It is the only way it will ever work.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you. Thank you for that piece of wisdom.
It has that ripple effect. If we do it, the next person will do it.
Yeah, totally. I want to shift the conversation a little bit because I think there's another really relevant conversation to have. I was listening to you talk with Tanya. I don't remember Tanya Louise, or I don't remember her last name.
Gonzalez. No, Hernandez.
Okay.
There's a lot of speakers. I have like 50 of them. I'm like, I gotta remember like the name.
I'm impressed you remember. So good on you. And you were talking about spirituality and Black women and where are the Black women in spirituality? And it just hit me when you were talking about that. And, obviously I speak from a white girl perspective, knowing nothing about what it is to be Black. But it just hit my heart, and it was like, yeah, where are they? And I think when I think of spirituality and Black women, where I'm taken is back to primal Africa.
That's interesting. Yeah. When I think about it, I get taken to church. Black women singing in church, right? And so, and that's fascinating to me because we had that conversation. Me and Tanya had that conversation, I believe, because I've had this conversation more than once in the series, but I don't quite understand the mindset of, I do and I don't. I don't understand on a personal level. I understand it on a cultural level. I understand the mindset of programming. But, you have Black people who came over here with a very different set of religious bringing. It was beaten out of them to think differently. And so now they're still kind of preaching the same thing, right? So you see a lot of them are in religion versus in spirituality. And that's just, that's the culture now. And so it's really interesting that, our roots, we've been taught that our roots are so bad and so wrong. And the conversation, I think, because she brought it up, and I just thought, I was like, yes, yeah, like her speaking about it was so powerful because, we had a healing modality. If people look at voodoo and they look at hoodoo, it was a healing modality. And then the white men came along and said, that's wrong, that you can't think like that. And they've done that around the whole entire world. It's not just Black people. They've done this. Look at the world now. Most of it's Christianity, right? So, so much has changed in the world itself that this is the way it goes. And we have to get rid of everything else that doesn't work or that we don't believe in, or that doesn't point the finger to us, that you need to come to us. And so a lot of people are so afraid of it. Movies make you afraid of it. But if you look at it, it was actually originally a healing. And so everything, even the Latina, I'm thinking Latinas because I'm always around Latina women, but even the Latin culture, they had the Santeria and stuff like that. It's like, there's been this wisdom of like medicine women and living off of the earth and herbs and really like witches, like people have such a negative connotation with that because of the movies, right? Yeah. But it's literally living off of the earth. It's like understanding that if you believe in God, didn't God give you the herbs and the trees and the fruits and all these things to take care of ourselves, but we call them bad when we actually use them. It doesn't make sense. So the conversation was definitely like, where are the Black people at? Because like the white culture is definitely coming up, like Celtics now, that's not bad anymore and all this other stuff, but it's still like the more indigenous people, the minorities are still kind of separated from that world. Like, oh, when we think of spirituality, we don't necessarily think of Black people now. We think of white people. So we were just saying, if this is our culture and this is a gift that we brought to you guys, we brought to this place, America is what I'm talking about right now. If the Black people brought this gift to America and then it was taken from us and now we're getting it back, why aren't the Black people included in that? And so that's part of my platform, is wanting to have a space for more Black spiritual people to come and actually speak. Because even though I'm a Black woman, I'm mixed. So I don't even have the full on Black culture, knowing what it's like. There's a little bit of separation there. And so I'm like, I want to hear more. I want to hear more about with my Black family, and what they have to say and where their what was their story? How did they change? I had one woman, this one Black lady that I got to interview. She's Nicole, I think it was pronounced Levens, but she was raised with ritual and she was raised with her culture. And I was like, so fascinated by that. Like, really? What? Yes.
She's the one that does the goddess baths, I think.
Yes, the goddess bath experience.
Listening to you and listening to some of the Black women that you've interviewed, I just feel like there's this really deep, grounded, earthy wisdom that you could bring to us. And it's something that's so needed right now.
Yeah.
And I would love to see more of that expressed.
I agree. But I want the whole story to be told, though. Like, just me personally, Black women might be like, well, I just want to be heard because they haven't been heard. For me, because I share both sides equally, I really want to see like a whole story. So this is what I find fascinating. And this may not seem connected when people listen to this, but it's directly connected. So Black women have this ability to come out in public and say whatever they want, right? They have this ability to come out and just be who they are. Whether people think they're crazy or not, they're actually allowed to do that. So white women, not so much. And this is the reason why. And this is why people, when they're in their culture, they don't realize how suppressed they are until somebody else kind of gives them feedback. If you guys go to YouTube right now and put in like old commercials, like old, like, I forget what it's called, maybe band commercials, but there's this whole thing that shows you all these commercials, right? And so you'll see throughout history, since we've been like had print ads, since we've had television, all of that, you will see how white women were literally made to be nothing more than beautiful. You had to be beautiful. I mean, some of the ads are just disturbing. Like one of the ads was something like, cigarettes should be like your women, and it was a white woman, thin. It was like thin and something else, right? And so this was like a constant. You see white women who were very specifically, they have to look a certain way, they have to be, and it's being said. It's not just what we've noticed nowadays, which is the way they look on the front of a magazine, but it's actually being stated. Like, this is what is expected of you, is just to be beautiful, just crazy, right? Black women never look like that. If you start looking at the Black ads, we never had that issue. Never once had the issue. There was an ad. It was a light-skinned Black woman. So there was a little bit darker woman, kind of a little bit darker than me, and then my color in the middle, and then a white woman on the other side. And it was a soap commercial that was basically saying that if you wash yourself enough, you'll be light enough. You'll be white enough, right? So I'm telling you, there's a blessing in this. Like, we look at it as like, oh, there's racism, and look at how and I looked at it and I went, thank you. The first time I could look at this and just say thank you, because there was a freedom. There's a freedom in not being seen in just one way. Like, you can be fat, you can be skinny, you can be ugly, you can be super dark, you can be kind of light. Like, we have this permission just to be. And no matter how crazy we sound, no matter nothing, we can just be ourselves. We can just be ourselves. But white women they have not had that freedom. So it's really interesting to think about how women are coming up, Black women, white women, everybody's just kind of coming up and going, we don't have to stay with the stereotype, whether the stereotype is a Black woman or a skinny woman or white. We don't have to. All of us are coming up. But we want to include everyone. We want to include every single story because we have all been through something. And I feel lucky to be a little bit more dark skinned. In the summertime, I'd be super dark, I haven't really went out this summer, so I'm still light. But, noticing just whether I'm super dark, how I'm being treated, because there's a difference. You get treated differently the darker you are. And I've noticed it. But it's like including everyone, every skin tone, but it's just including those women and allowing them to step forward and to step into their spirituality no matter what, because there's a story for all of us, even if you don't realize you've had one this whole entire time.
I never really thought of it that way. It's really refreshing to hear someone that sees both sides and embodies both sides. That's really cool. Obviously, I'm very white. I had the experience from one side, I can't honestly say that I have the experience of being a Black woman. I have none, but you have the experience of both. And it's just really cool to hear how you view it.
Yeah.
So once again, I'm going to shift the conversation, unless there's anything else that you wanted to say about that. I want to make sure we give voice to that as much as you
No, I don't. The thing about, to me, this is the same conversation because we're talking about separation, right?
Yeah.
And when we look at, where's the Black women versus the white women, it's like all of us have been through something. We just need to include more Black women now. We need to include more, Native Americans and more Latin people. We need to include everyone, but we all have a story. We all have a story. And just some of us just don't know what that story is until you give them the feedback. Like, did you know that this is what white women have been through? Did you know this is how you've been stereotyped, that you're not allowed to be anything other than beautiful, slim, thin? And that's the only way that men would look at you back then. Like the ads were crazy. They even talked about, there was an ad that said, do you still beat your women? Maybe you should have never stopped. And it's a white woman being beaten. Yes, it was an ad. It was an ad. Yes, this is how they would sell stuff. This is how we didn't have this issue. We weren't being sold to like that. Like we needed to be beaten. Like you have no idea what the culture has set up for you, right? And so it's like we need to become enlightened, and it's not about separation, you guys. It's about inclusion. Like share these stories so that white women understand they've been a part of this whole entire time of separation. So it hasn't just been Black people. So I like the inclusion aspect because I don't want to play the game of separation. Like we all have been through something, but where's everybody else at? We got to bring them all into the conversation like you're doing now. So it's all part of the same conversation to me.
Yeah, you're right. That's very interesting. Yeah. Okay. So you have created this series called Making Miracles Happen. It's the whole month of October. There's like 2 people every day. Interviews are featured. It's amazing. I've been following as closely as I can so far. And I just want to know what inspired this. How did this all start for you? What your intentions are with this series? Just tell us a little bit about those things.
Oh, where do I start? The story is so long and so vast. I've been a psychic medium. I was a psychic medium for 12 years, so 2000 to 2012. But in the whole entire time, I had been studying these different modalities. I had studied 13 different modalities. In 2012, I was downloaded with my own modality. And everything changed in my life. Everything started shifting. But this whole entire time, I've always been guided by my guides. Sometimes they're quiet, sometimes they're loud, sometimes I can hear them just as clearly as me and you are talking. Sometimes it's an inner knowing, but they're always there. And that has been the beauty of this journey. I never know where it's going to take me, but I know I'm on one. I'm on a journey. I don't know where it's going to go, but I know that I'm on one. So being a part of my journey where I'm just kind of like, life is interesting. The world is being shut down. Where do I go with this? Maybe I don't go anywhere. Maybe I just keep doing what I'm doing. That's where I was at. And I literally am like working on my computer, and one of my guides come in, male voice. Males are the usual ones that speak to me. And he said, it's time to start interviewing people again. And I used to have a radio show. I used to do Sirius radio. I used to do a lot of different platforms. So it was interesting when they said it's time for you to start interviewing people again, because I think I've only done it like once or twice in my life where I had a show where I was interviewing people. And I distinctly got the impression they wanted me to do it on video. And I quit TV 7 years ago. And I'm like, you guys know I don't want to be on camera, right? Like, I'm done. I'm private. I want to go. Yeah, I want to hide, VH1, bio, news, like reality TV series. I've done it all. I'm like, I don't want to do it anymore. I had a very specific defining moment where 2013 or 2014, I had somebody from TLC contacted me about being a part of this reality TV show. And in the middle of the conversation, I like leave my body and have a conversation with myself, right? And I was like, is this your passion anymore? Really? Why? What changed? And it was like, well, you're putting yourself out there, because I love entertainment. I can laugh at myself. Like, I love it. It's great. But it was like, there's a lot of people who aren't really serious about this work, who's kind of just watching it for entertainment. And if I was going to be famous, if I was going to be known, if I wanted to be heard, I want to be heard within the community in which I truly want to be a part of, which is the spiritual community, not just the whole entire world. Mm-hmm. And so it was like, well, does that serve this purpose? And it was no. So I had this quick, it was literally like 10 seconds long, but, and it was a long conversation that I had within that 10 seconds. In my mind. And so when I came back into my body, I said, I'm really sorry, but I think I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And she was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I don't think this is my passion anymore. I'm not going to do TV anymore. And I said, thank you so much for thinking of me though. And she was like, okay, bye. It's just like, I remember her voice just like defeated. She felt so defeated. And I felt so liberated. Like, I can just go on with my life, not worrying about the next TV show. How am I going to put myself out there? How am I going to, all this other stuff. So it was like my moment of, aha, I'm done. So my guides tell me to come back and start interview people again, but this time you're going to do it on video. I'm like, we had this conversation. No. But I've had enough bad stuff happen to me when I don't listen to my guides that I'm like, why? I'm always going to do what they tell me to do. It's always going to happen. Why am I going to postpone it? They always have my best interest. There's always good that comes from it. I'm not arguing this time. I'm just not doing it. I was like, all right, y'all make it happen, then I'll do it. Like, that literally was my response. I thought if y'all make it happen, I'll do it. So that's what happened. And then I think it was 7 or 8 days later, I already had a list of speakers that I was getting ready to, and I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm doing it. Okay. So, a lot of my fears came up around this too, which is really interesting.
Really?
Yeah, I had a really...
Are you willing to share?
It didn't make sense because I've done TV, I've done radio, I work with celebrities. This doesn't make any sense, right? But I went through a freak out moment. Like, okay, you ready for this one? You might actually understand this. Okay, so I'm reaching out to these speakers. And then I'm just like, no, I can't do this. Like, people aren't going to want to come to my party. They're going to tell me, no, nobody's going to want to do this. I'd rather die than do this. Now, mind you, this was the thinking in my mind. I'm not going to go and kill myself. Like, there was no part of me that was like, oh, I'm going to go do this. But my mind was literally sitting there having this freak out. Like, no, you need to just lay down and die before you do this. Like, we'd rather die. You need to take yourself out now. And I'm just like, where are these thoughts coming from? Because I'm not there. Like, it's not that dramatic, but where is this coming from? So I couldn't even deal with this. Oh my God. I couldn't even deal with this for 10, 12 hours. I was like, I don't understand how people live with anxiety, because I couldn't take it for very long before I had to sit down. I was agitated. I couldn't hear what people were saying. I couldn't work. I couldn't do it. It was that strong and so scary within me. So I sat down and I did my own techniques on myself, right? I'm sitting there and I'm like, where is this coming from? Just show me where this is coming from. And my inner child comes out and says, we just can't do this. And I was like, show me why. Why can't we do this? And all of a sudden I get all these flashbacks of the fact that I used to watch Nickelodeon and Disney and all these, supposed to be family friendly, great stations for clean entertainment. And what I was being programmed with was the fact that every single girly type show always showed that there was a girl who threw a party, and the most popular girl took everybody from that party. And the only person that would go to that person's party is like their best friend or their mom or whatever. And it was like, oh, see, the people that love me show up, but nobody else will. Nobody else will show up. And I always felt like I was that girl because it was always, you know, the underdog, whether it was the white girl who had the dark hair instead of the blonde hair, or the bigger girl, or the black girl. It was always somebody that you would consider the underdog in the show. It wasn't the popular girl. And so I was like, I identified with that character so much that my reality was that people weren't going to show up for me. Nobody was going to show up to my party. So what's the point? What's the point? I'm just going to be embarrassed. I'm going to be mortified. And so therefore I shouldn't do it at all. And I was like, no, I'm so glad my inner child shared that with me. Thank you for sharing that, because it's time to heal it now, because we can't live like this. Yeah. Like I can't be so afraid of something that I won't do it, but I also can't live with anxiety like this either. And it was making me physically sick. Like I was feeling physically sick. And so I did a healing on myself. And I think I got it from like 100% of my mind just being like, no, we're not doing this. We'd rather die, to about 15% of feeling like I'm still kind of having a little bit of anxiety, which is huge. That's a huge jump from 100% within 15 minutes.
And when I look at you, when I feel your energy and experience you, you are a strong, vibrant, empowered woman. Like there is no part that I connect with that's the underdog.
And I always felt that way. It's interesting. I was just before we got on the live, I just interviewed this guy. He's my last interview of today. And he literally was talking about, you know, it's how you view yourself is the real issue, because it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks of you. Because he said people, the way they perceived him growing up was like, oh, you're always so sweet and always so caring and loving. He's like, but I was bullied. I felt like the black sheep of the family because I thought differently. You know, his experience, the way he experienced his reality was very different than the way they experienced his reality. And so for me, it was like, you know, I grew up feeling that way. Like I was second best. You know what I mean? Like, it's like people, I identify with the character on TV. And so therefore that's going to happen to me. And as a child, you know, you can't put that into perspective when you're growing up. That's just a truth. And especially until you're 6 years old, whatever programming you get is a truth to you. And I always explain it to my clients, like, if you were a model, like one of the most beautiful women in the world, getting paid $20 million a year, to be on the cover of magazines. And then when you looked in the mirror because somebody at age 3 told you you were ugly, you're still going to see what you consider ugly in the mirror. It doesn't matter how much you're getting paid or how many times people tell you you're beautiful. It's not what you see. And so for me, it was like, I still saw myself as that girl that I witnessed on TV, you know? So it gave me an opportunity to heal it. And every time we listen to our intuition, every time we move forward beyond our fears, we have a massive healing that happens. And so for me, this was a massive healing. So I kind of had to sit down with my guides. Like, was that the point? Was like to get the healing, or am I actually supposed to do the series? Like, you know, is there more to it? And it was like, it's the community. It's the community. Like the best part of this after that healing of myself, because each and every time, again, there's more and more stuff that comes out that needs to be healed, but you're clearing it. And then you get to just experience the people you're talking to. Like you, I've been wanting to talk to you for 6 years. Since the first time I saw like your video, I've been wanting to communicate with you. I'm like, I just want to kind of talk to her and really get a feel for this process, because what I really loved about you is that what you seem to do was so woo-woo. Like I would, at that point, when I found you, I would have been so afraid to be like, I channel the prime creator. I channel anything would be scary for me, right? It'd be, how are people going to look at me? How are they going to judge me? And so when I watched you, I was like, there's something kind of cool about this chick. I want to know how you go out there and you feel comfortable in your own skin to do this. Like, it was so fascinating because there's such a lesson to be learned. Like, I'm having a heart attack thinking that I'm just going to interview people, you know, in private, where you have to sign up to register. It's not even necessarily going out into the world. And here you are just out there all the time doing stuff that people might think a little crazy or a little strange, or, oh my God, what is she doing? So I had a lot of respect for you for doing it. So for 6 years, I've been wanting to communicate with you because of that. And I wouldn't have really the opportunity had I not been doing this. So that's been honestly the greatest reward, is actually connecting to the community that I've been so separated from, you know,
that feels good.
Meeting people, talking to people, hearing their story, like we all have a story. Yeah. We've all been through it. And once you hear enough of the stories, you're like, okay, I'm not alone.
Yeah, that's one of the things. I mean, we're only 7 days in the series, right? And you feel a connection with the people who are sharing their stories, because they're sharing what's very real and vulnerable to them. And you have a way with people, when they speak with you, they open up and share everything. And it's so beautiful. And I know the people that are watching are like really deeply connecting with your speakers and with you, because the information is so raw and real. And these are our experiences, and it's so beautiful. And so those of you, I put a link in the description. Go and register for free. We're only 7 days in. You didn't miss that much yet. I mean, you did miss a lot, because it was a rich 7 days. But there's so much more to come. So go ahead and register for free for that series. The link is in the description, you guys. I really want you to be a part of this, because Adrien has magic with her that I don't know how to describe. And maybe if I did a channeling with you, Prime Creator would give me words, but you have a magic with you that there's like this thread that carries the series that I would call Adrien's magic. And it's because of the topic you chose, partially, but it's because of who you are and how you have said yes to showing up. And so I want to thank you for that. And I want to thank you for doing it on video, because when I see video, I feel much more connected. Yes, I saw the one where you were talking about being on video versus not. And I'm telling you, we don't care what your hair looks like. We don't care what clothes you're wearing. We don't care if your makeup's done or not. We want to feel your heart. We want to look in your eyes. We want to feel connected. So I'm just going to say it. Keep showing up on video, if you please, because we feel more connected with you when you share your beautiful face with us.
Yeah, you're welcome. As long as my guides are like, yeah, keep doing it, then I'll keep doing it.
Yeah, look, I'm not one of your guides, so you listen to you. You listen to your heart. But I just want to reiterate that the video is very connecting. And I think the people in my world would agree, because I know that people can feel connected with me because I show up on video, and they can see my eyes and my face, and they can see the light coming out of my eyes, and they can feel my heart. And when they contact me, I have no idea who they are, but I know that somehow they've made a connection. And it's not just my voice, it's because they've been able to see me. So I love being able to see you in the videos.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Here I'm showing up loud and proud for now.
Before we say goodbye to my community, is there anything else that you want to share?
You know what? Yes. A little bit more just about making miracles happen. Awesome. You know, so many people look at miracles as like this divine thing that happened. Like you had a near-death experience, you talked to your spirit guides or dead people came back to tell the story. That's a miracle. Some people think, you know, to have an angel come and save you when you're getting ready to die in a car accident, that's a miracle. And we always think of these things as really big, amazing productions. And we forget that miracles happen all day, every day. And if you looked at them, if you noticed them, if you recognized them, if you acknowledge them, you would experience more of them. But most of us don't. And that is the reason for the story. The stories on making miracles happen, because this one is a storytelling special. So I asked people for their stories, and I got way more than I ever even thought I would get. It's been pretty incredible. For those of you who like scary stories, who like ghost stories, who like paranormal intuition stories, it's all there.
Spiritual awakening stories. There's a lot of those.
A lot of those, because I always ask people what their story is. But it's been so amazing, because it's like when you can hear every single day of your life, a person has a miracle, some kind of miraculous thing happen, as no matter how little, no matter how big, it becomes a normal part of your everyday life. And the more you tune in, the more you listen, the more you're like, oh, I could create a miracle, and you'll experience your miracles. But if miracles are elusive to us, if there's something that we think it just doesn't happen to us, or they happen only during really big times before I'm getting ready to die or something like that, that's all you will experience, and you'll limit your miracles. And so this series is really to open up everybody to their everyday miracles so that they can have magic happen all day, every day. Why not? We deserve it. We should have it.
Absolutely.
So that is the reason for the series.
And I love that you're running in October, because as we learned in the numerology one, that October sets us up for the rest of the year. And I've heard this before. I've been in that world a little bit. Yeah, October, but I had forgotten. So it was a great reminder. I'm so grateful for the reminder, because I'm being very intentional about how I behave. So October, just for those who didn't catch this, October sets you up for the rest of the year. What happens is October is indicative of how the rest of the year will go. And so we can be very intentional about how we live in October so that we can have a year that follows that we love. And I'm all about creation and creating and who we are as creators and empowering ourselves as creators. And so I love the power in that message. I forget who gave it. Was it Tanya? Was she the numerologist?
No, that was Joy.
Joy, okay.
Woodward. Yeah, she's the joy of numerology. I got so many messages about Joy and that whole interview, and the fact that people could follow along and do that was incredible. That was fun. That was fun.
By the way, if you have missed the first 7 days, you can buy the package, and then you'll get all of the interviews, and you don't have to do anything. So there's that possibility for you too, if you're just joining in now.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Adrien. You are a delight. Like I said before, you're vibrant, you're powerful, you're grounded, but also very connected to these other realms. And I love that combination. I'm just so grateful that you've taken the time to speak with my community today.
Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, I really love your energy so much. So I'm so, so grateful.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the invite. And thank you for all the appreciative and gratitude words that you use when it comes to me. I always appreciate that when people share.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you again, Adrien.
Bye, everybody.